Hey, you're listening to the Intentional Documentary Podcast. So glad to have you. Around here, I'm gushing over the stories behind the pictures that we freaking love of our own lives. You know, the ones we hold as high value and iconic, because this is where photography meets real life. I'm your host, Marie Moss, and I believe that the best way to approach your photography is through your lens, your way. Through insightful conversations with photographers, I'll explore preserving life with your camera and using what lights you up to grow your brand. Let's get started. My friend, there is a brand new community on the horizon, and I'm so excited to tell you about it and invite you to it. The Intentional Documentary Community. You may have seen after 5 years and over 7,000 members, I recently closed my Goodbye Posing Guide group on Facebook. If you weren't a part of that group or you missed the beginning back in 2014, 2015 or so, it was a lovely place to be. Eventually, though, through the years, more voices, more opinions, the documentary family photography genre just grew, and the community became something that felt more like a weight and a place I had to be cautious in rather than the safe space where we could photograph freely and feel nothing short of delight to be a part of and feel just pure celebration over what we were documenting, the things that really mattered to us and our clients. And it was that freaking simple. And I know I'm not alone in that. After closing my group, I've received dozens, literally dozens of messages, emails, and text messages that have affirmed this new direction. People have been reaching out to say things like, I want to read just a few of these because they really touched my heart. One, and this one was a really short and sweet one that seemed to be really consistent in a lot of the messages. And it said, through your group, you gave me permission to shoot what lights me up. Or I would hear things like, you helped me find my heart in this and things like that. Another, I must say that I love your messaging and different voice to what many are talking about with documentary family photography. I'd love the opportunity to contribute to a new group in a supportive way that builds a strong and friendly community. Another, I have such fond memories of when I first joined, and you're right, it was magical. You're the reason I love documentary and the original founder of it in my eyes. Of course, that touched my heart, even though I don't think it's true. Documenting came a lot, way before I did. I just put it into words, I guess. And she said, when I've heard other photographers talk about it to groups, it's not the same. I miss the old days of this group. I'll definitely be following. And that one just was so reaffirming that there is, there's this beating pulse out there that I have felt that other people are feeling as well. And one more example, I have found this to be the most meaningful way to document my family. I'm so thankful that there's this community that exists and gets it. I've signed up to be part of the newer group because I know what will happen there will be important and sincere. And that it will be. The Intentional Documentary Community is being built already, and it's being built with more intention so that we put what matters first, and we protect that mission. We protect that ability to just see more of what matters so that we can document it. It'll go live in the fall, and this is your invitation to hear about it first. Visit fearlessandframed.com/community. I'll see you there. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Intentional Documentary. I'm going to give you a fair warning as we are at the top of the summer. I am working on a really cool, kind of secret project that will come out in the fall. So I may slow down these episodes just a little bit because the kids are going to be out of school for the summer and I can only divide my attention in so many ways. But I mean, this podcast is near and dear to my heart. So it's not like I'm going to go the whole summer or a whole month without episodes. But I want you to subscribe to this so that way when a new episode does come out, you get a notification. About today, I was going to call this episode Random Acts of Acknowledgement, playing off of the whole Random Acts of Kindness or Pay It Forward movement, which you've heard of those things, right? Like where you say, leave money at the drive-thru to pay for the person behind you's meal. There's a lot of emphasis in that movement, I think, in doing these random kind acts for total strangers. And it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And I hope people keep doing it because it lifts people up and it just makes the world a better place, for sure. But what I want to talk about today is, what about the people who matter to us? What about the people on our VIP list? What about the people who have left a lasting impact on our lives, whether they were in your life for your whole life or just for a short time where you crossed paths for a season or a day or a moment? Maybe it was a sentence that they said that just stuck with you and molded you and shaped you into the person that you are. Big or small, acknowledgement for these people is important too, isn't it? We can be random and unexpected in doling out the acknowledgement, but I think we can all agree that we can be intentional in how we watch for opportunities to give acknowledgement. As documentarians, we're so lucky. We've got this gift of observation and anticipation and just seeing the world a little differently than most people. And we can literally find these opportunities when we're watching for moments to record. We're doing that already. So looking for opportunities to give acknowledgement is really like collecting $200 as you pass go on Monopoly. You're not going out of your way and you're getting something really freaking awesome along the way. So this episode's a little different because it's more story-based up front and there's wisdom nuggets throughout, but it's especially at the end, I'm going to pull it back together to you to try to turn this into something that's something practical for you to move forward with. May 20th, 2007, that's the day I met my husband. I would love to tell you that whole story because it feels so good to revisit it all the time. And it was one of those stories where it was just like all kinds of stars had to align for our meeting to happen. It's pretty wild. So again, I'd love to tell you that sometime. In short, we met at a concert in Michigan. We did not know each other, and I thought he was really, really cute. And I had some liquid courage going on that kind of prompted me to walk up to him. And I'd love to say that the rest was history, but nope, there's some more breadcrumbs that led us back together after the concert. But anyway, that's not what this episode is about. Fast forward to May 20th, 2019. That's when I outlined this episode because I was so inspired that morning. As I am recording this, it's a few days later, and we've now known each other for 12 years. And again, we met in 2007. I was, confession time, busted by Canadian immigration in 2009, which I can make light of now, but let me tell you, it was scary AF at the time. And my story has nothing on the stories that we hear in the news today, of course, when it comes to immigration and customs and being detained and all that stuff. I was just being accused of living in Canada. And if I'm being honest, I kind of was, but I honestly didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I thought that I was fitting in that box of what their guidelines on their website says as a visitor. I wasn't working over there or trying to get healthcare or anything like that. So I just, was visiting my boyfriend a lot. So we were married 6 weeks later after that immigration scare. I really did live out the movie, The Proposal, in real life. And so we were married 6 weeks later at the top of 2010. And now I thank immigration for that push. And actually after our wedding, when we went back over to Canada, the officer that I saw that had to process my paperwork was the same person who told me that I needed to stay out of Canada a little bit more and told me I had to leave Canada the next day. So it was really kind of fun to say, thank you. I've wanted to marry him for like a year and a half, and you kind of put that into motion. So thank you. And they were really cool about it. But anyway, so May 20th, 2019, I woke up to find this love note on the counter, and my day was just made before I even had coffee. And it's not the quote unquote love part of the love note. I know he loves me. I know I'm loved. He shows me by all the ways he shows up for me every single day. Mind you, far from romantic, but it's all love. In the friendship and the partnership he gives me, in the give and take that comes with considering your partner, like all the times where I keep him up till 1 a.m. just talking because I'm all just like spinning like a top, and he patiently listens and fuels my soul in response, even though I know he'd way rather be in bed or watching a movie or just about doing anything else on the planet other than having deep conversations and sharing his feelings and all the things that I put him through. I know the man loves me. And love is not all about affection and I love yous and gifts, which I'm sure you know that. So what got me about this note was that he paused. That's it. He paused in the middle of a busy, getting ready for work morning to essentially say, you matter. And to me, that's an intentional act of acknowledgement. Have you ever heard of the 5 love languages? If not, I will link to this in the show notes. I'm not a huge follower of it. I'm not that knowledgeable about it. I just know that I took an assessment. I think this came from a book that someone wrote, and there's also a page that has the description of the 5 love languages. So again, I'll link to all of that in the show notes, fearlessandframed.com/053. And all 5 of these love languages are wonderful, but when you go through that assessment, you'll find that there's 1 or 2 that really speak to your heart the most. So when I think, for example, this is one of the love languages, which is my love language, it's quality time. And when I think of that, I think of our conversations that Dave and I have on the couch, or our dates, or being in the car together, doing chores together, bedroom time, etc. Like literal physical time together. So on May 20th, on that day this year, he just grabbed a scrap piece of paper and acknowledged my feelings around this date. So for context, you have to know that I've kind of always been a romantic and celebrated this date, but him, not so much. To him, he puts more value in our wedding anniversary. And I could go in a deep rabbit hole here, but just know that I never really had boyfriends before my husband. And so meeting him was truly this breath of fresh air that was life-changing for me. I know that sounds all like big and whatever, but it's true. Dave, on the other hand, he tells me stories about his girlfriends all the time. It's no wonder that our wedding date means more to him, because he had lived out that experience of meeting people like on many occasions. So all that to say, it's no wonder that I always feel so much joy in my heart on May 20th. And for a long, long time, he's acted like it's just any other day. Big deal. It's the day we met. I mean, yeah, that's important, but it's not like we're actually together since that day. It's not like we got married on that day, which it hasn't really hurt or anything like that. It's a difference of opinion, and nobody's right, nobody's wrong. So again, May 20th this year, and finding that love note wasn't about a love note. It was about that acknowledgement for who I am. Because in between the lines of what he wrote, I got this message that he paused and he was considering just how important this day is to me in my heart and responded to that. Even though he doesn't necessarily agree, he put his own feelings aside and put me first. And, that was just 60 seconds that took just it was such a short and sweet note that took him probably less than 60 seconds to do, but meant the world. So it kind of sparked a thought in my head around how giving acknowledgement is a form of quality time, my love language, when you're not physically together. So you might think that words of acknowledgement is my love language. That's one of the 5 love languages, but it wasn't so much about what he wrote. It was that acknowledgement. And I think that it speaks to, again, that quality time piece that is what lights me up. So isn't it just the best to know that you're being thought of even when you're not together with somebody? It doesn't even have to be a husband or a wife or a boyfriend, partner, whatever. It could be with your parents are thinking of you, or your grandparents, or your child, or another friend, or maybe somebody that you know in your community that you have a connection with. It doesn't matter who it is. It just feels good to be thought of when you're not actually together, right? So what does this have to do with documenting, and where's the wisdom nugget? I mean, I think it's kind of obvious, we should give acknowledgement to people who care about us more, but here's where I want to tie this into documenting is that I think that especially in the documentary family photography community, it's so easy to just look at documenting as a way to put what we see into pictures. What I'm kind of proposing here is that we can do more. Dave didn't use documenting to spark his note to me on that day. He did that out of years of me making a big deal out of this date. So conditioning, I guess, marital conditioning and training or whatever. But he's learned how important it is to me. And on that day, this year, he responded to that. As documentarians, we have this upper hand to give intentional acts of acknowledgement. We can give the most unexpected you matter gifts because of how we see in our day-to-day lives. It's how we see in pictures, how we put life into pictures. We don't have to wait for a special date. We can just use what we're already doing in another way. And that's really what I want you to take away from this episode. In the way I've practiced documenting through the years, it's been an illumination that pulls together the past, the present, and the future's dreams all together, all in one. Looking at a scene or a story or your subject or whatever in front of you and seeing with more depth. It's this strangely beautiful way of seeing that awakens stories in my subconscious and helps them to surface. That might sound a little out there or whatever, but I know I'm not alone in this. And I hope that if this is kind of an area that you play with and explore. So here's an example. A while back, I was playing with my camera and documenting my hometown and took my kids to the elementary and middle schools I went to, which are across the street from each other. And in between the schools, there's a busy road with a crosswalk that goes over it. I was shooting in real time, obviously. Yet stories and peoples of my past and dreams for the future were all present in my mind at that exact same time. The changes, the things that have stayed the same, and my predictions and desires and my fears for the future. And if that sounds familiar to how you've experienced documenting, make no mistake, those stories and thoughts surfacing are an opportunity to give acknowledgement. The mistake we make is by letting them leave our minds as quickly as they came in. Well, that's what this episode is for. You can start now. You can start practicing that awareness muscle for those opportunities to give acknowledgement. And it's kind of what I talked about in episode 46 with awareness as a gift. So if you haven't listened to that episode, definitely do so. And if you're still like, what are you talking about? I don't see the past, the present, and the future all in one. You sound like you're nuts. Go to a place where you have a lot of memories, which is very likely not the house that you live in now. Maybe it's a childhood home or like where you spent a lot of time with various people. For me, it's my grandparents' homes. I can't necessarily go there anymore, but I've got lots of stories that come to mind. My family cabin, my hometown, where we lived in Michigan, like where I lived with Dave and the kids in Michigan, which is separate from where I grew up. Places like that are a really great place to start, kind of seeing what comes up when you're thinking about the past, the present, and the future, like all together. I think it's a little more challenging to think in this way when you're having brand new experiences. I mean, definitely it can happen, but it's so easy to just focus on the here and now and what's actually happening. And I am not saying like, oh yeah, we should all go walking around with like carrying our past and our future, like thoughts about the future with us all the time. Definitely not saying that, but it's like this, there are healing powers, I think, like peace, clarity, all kinds of things that can happen when you do see in this way. So again, there's no one right way to see things, no one right way to use photography and all of that. But this has just been my experience and something that has been a complete and total gift. So anyway, those stories that come up are something to pay attention to. Don't just always cling to the real-time moment. There are messages that come through you that are likely worth passing on to someone else. Maybe it's something that somebody else just might need to hear. You really never know. So here's an example, and one that I'm kind of embarrassed about. When I was shooting at those schools, I thought about all the times I crossed that crosswalk over the road with my friends. We used to like push our bikes up these stairs, which is essentially like 2 flights of stairs. So pushing your bike up is a little difficult, and walking them across and carrying them down the other side and to go play with friends on the other side of the busy road. And I thought about all those specific stories. And those stories are a chance to say, thank you to my friends. This one time, this happened and this stuck with me. So I have an actual example I'm going to give you. And again, like, I mean, I was in 4th or 5th grade, so I'm not really actually embarrassed by this, but my friends and I were on that crosswalk, and it was like a thing to go over that crosswalk and spit on the cars passing below. I mean, gross, right? Not my finest moment. But again, 4th, 5th grade. Another student's parent recognized us this one time. And the next school day, she told the principal, and then she herself, that parent, chewed us out. She talked to us each individually, and I can still remember just being mortified. And I can vividly remember her words around, do you know how disgusting it was to have to remove spit from my car with paper towel? Like I can feel what I felt like in that moment, and the shame and embarrassment and all the things. And as embarrassing as that was, today, I should thank her for that moment, because it probably shaped who I am. I mean, what if that didn't happen? What if I didn't get caught? Excuse my French, but my asshole level could have kept rising. But because that happened, because she called me out, I genuinely felt bad and never did that again. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to the other stories that surface when you're documenting that aren't necessarily a real-time moment. The memories that pop up along the way, you can do something with those. They may seem so small, but you never know what someone else is going through. So what if that mom who called me out is over there wondering if she's done enough in her lifetime, or maybe she's going through a hard time. What if she's feeling like shit over who knows what? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe a thank you for something she did really well could change everything. You never know. And that's why I truly believe that those memories that resurface should not be taken lightly. Hold on to them, write them down, something, express them if you can. Documenting can help us capture them, because you can believe that when I look at those pictures from the crosswalk from the schools, which I photographed those 2 years ago at the time of recording this, those stories will surface again when I look at those pictures, even though those stories are not in those pictures. So again, what I want to propose to you is to use documenting to spark giving that gift of acknowledgement, intentional acts of acknowledgement. Don't just document for the dopamine rush of sharing a fleeting photo on social media. Remember, what comes before documenting is acknowledgement. Documenting is your response, and it trains your awareness muscle. Again, episode 46. So can you spare 1 hour over the next week? Maybe break it up into 10-minute chunks if you have to, 10-minute chunks to make up 60 minutes, 1 hour, and go through your photos. See what stories in the pictures or beyond the pictures come up that are an opportunity to give an intentional act of acknowledgement to someone who has mattered to you. Or maybe go about it from this point, like maybe this is your jumping off point. What relationships in your life might feel a little heavy right now and they could use a little light? I know you can think of somebody if you're going through something. Could you start there? Photos aside, to acknowledge something they've just plain done well for you, whatever comes to mind. Is it worth expressing to them a way that they've left a positive impact on who you are? Maybe you send them an email, a text, a phone call, write a letter, an in-person conversation. If you've got a photo, send them the picture that sparked it all and just write about it on the backside. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be done with perfect words or a perfect gift. Just something short and sweet and from the heart that's unexpected. Would you do that for me this week? Connect to one person through an intentional act of acknowledgement. I would be over the moon if you would do that. And if you do that, shoot me an email, marie@fearlessandframed.com, and tell me about it. I want to hear everything. How did it feel before? How did it feel after? What exactly did you do? And then moving forward, as you document, try to pay extra attention to those opportunities that come up. Get yourself a small notebook to carry with you and write them down as they come up. Next episode, we're talking copywriting with Rachel Greiman of Green Chair Stories. I've already recorded that episode and it's a good one. She's got 3 copywriting checkpoints, if you will, that are just places of opportunity to connect better. So if you're in business and you're feeling like your social efforts and your website aren't doing very much for you, you'll definitely want to hear that episode. But for now, stay awake from your stories. And if you need a little walkthrough again on what I just talked about, how to spend your time for this next hour, it's all transcribed in the show notes on the website, fearlessandframed.com/053. Talk to you next week. Thank you for listening. If you've got a quick sec, leave a review. Utilize that space to let me know what spoke to you out of today's episode, what questions were sparked from you. Every single time that I hear from you, you spark ideas in me that I put right back into the podcast for you. So it's win-win, right? You can always hit me up over on Instagram at fearlessandframed is my handle. And as always, you can go to fearlessandframed.com/intentional documentary podcast for this episode's show notes and any mini mags and past show notes. All the goodness is over there. And until next time, what are you going to preserve next? Talk to you soon.